Hi guys. Zanzibar was sitting so nicely under this tree in the shade. I thought I'd come over here and read with him and you. So, we're going to read 3 chapters again. If we read 3 today and 3 tomorrow, we'll be all done with this book. I'm really enjoying it. I hope you are too. So, yesterday when we left off, they were all headed to the fair. And remember, Wilbur was in his crate, and his crate was green with gold letters that said Zuckerman's Famous Pig. And who else was in that crate? Can you remember? Templeton the rat was in there hiding under the straw, and Charlotte was in there hiding in a knothole. Okay. Chapter 17 is called Uncle. When they pulled into the fairgrounds, they could hear music and see the Ferris wheel turning in the sky. They could smell the dust of the racetrack where the sprinkling cart had moistened it. And they could smell hamburgers frying and see balloons aloft. They could hear sheep blatting in their pens. An enormous voice over the loudspeaker said, "Attention, please. Will the owner of a Pontiac car, license number H2439, please move your car away from the fireworks shed?" "Can I have some money?" asked Fern. "Can I too?" asked Avery. "I'm going to win a doll by spinning a wheel, and it will stop at the right number," said Fern. "I'm going to steer a jet plane and make it bump into another one." "Can I have a balloon?" asked Fern. "Can I have a frozen custard and a cheeseburger and some raspberry soda pop?" asked Avery. "You children be quiet while we get this pig unloaded," said Mrs. Arable. "Let's let the children go off by themselves," suggested Mr. Arable. "The fair only comes once a year." Mr. Arable gave Fern 2 quarters and 2 dimes. He gave Avery 5 dimes and 4 nickels. "Now run along," he said, "and remember that money has to last you all day. Don't spend it all in the first few minutes. And be back here at the truck at noontime so we can all have lunch together. And don't eat a lot of stuff that's going to make you sick to your stomachs." "And if you go in those swings," said Mrs. Arable, "you hang on tight. You hang on very tight, you hear me?" "And don't get lost," said Mrs. Zuckerman, "and don't get dirty." "Don't get overheated," said their mother. "Watch out for pickpockets," cautioned their father. "And don't cross the racetrack when the horses are coming," cried Mrs. Zuckerman. The children grabbed each other by the hand, and they danced off in the direction of the merry-go-round, toward the wonderful music and the wonderful adventure and the wonderful excitement, into the wonderful midway where there would be no parents to guard them and guide them, and where they could be happy and free and do as they pleased. Mrs. Arable stood quietly and watched them go. Then she sighed. Then she blew her nose. "Oh, do you really think it's all right?" she asked. "Well, they've got to grow up sometime," said Mr. Arable. "And a fair is a good place to start." Here's a picture of them at the fair. Look at that big Ferris wheel. Doesn't that look like fun? Off they go, holding hands. That's so sweet. While Wilbur was being unloaded and taken out of his crate and into his new pig pen, crowds gathered to watch. They stared at the sign that said Zuckerman's Famous Pig. Wilbur stared back and tried to look extra good. He was pleased with his new home. The pen was grassy, and it was shaded from the sun by a shed roof. Charlotte, watching her chance, scrambled out of the crate and climbed a post to the underside of the roof. Nobody noticed her. Templeton, not wishing to come out in broad daylight, stayed quietly hidden under the straw at the bottom of the crate. Mr. Zuckerman poured some skim milk into Wilbur's trough. He pitched clean straw into his pen, and then he and Mrs. Zuckerman and the Arables walked away toward the cattle barn to look at purebred cows and see the sights. Mr. Zuckerman Mr. Zuckerman particularly wanted to look at tractors. Mrs. Zuckerman wanted to see a deep freeze. Lurvy wandered off by himself, hoping to meet friends and have some fun on the midway. As soon as the people were gone, Charlotte spoke to Wilbur. "It's a good thing you can't see what I see," she said. "What do you see?" asked Wilbur. "There's a pig in the next pen, and he's enormous. I'm afraid he's much bigger than you are." "Well, maybe he's older than me and has had more time to grow," suggested Wilbur. Tears began to come to his eyes. I'll drop down and have a closer look, Charlotte said. Then she crawled along the beam till she was directly over the next pen. She let herself down on a drag line until she hung in the air just in front of the big pig's snout. "May I have your name?" she asked politely. The pig stared at her. "No name," he said in a big, hearty voice. "Just call me Uncle." "Very well, Uncle," replied Charlotte. "What is the date of your birth? Are you a spring pig?" "Sure, I'm a spring pig," replied Uncle. "What did you think I was, a spring chicken? Ha ha ha! That's a good one, eh, sister?" "Mildly funny," said Charlotte. "I've heard funnier ones, though. Glad to have met you, and now I must be going." She ascended slowly and returned to Wilbur's pen. "He claims to be a spring pig," reported Charlotte, "and perhaps he is. One thing is certain. He has a most unattractive personality. He's too familiar, too nosy, and he cracks weak jokes, although he's not anywhere near as clean as you are, nor as pleasant. I took quite a dislike to him in our brief interview. He's going to be a hard pig to beat, though, Wilbur, on account of his size and weight. But with me helping you, it can be done." "Where are you going to spin a web?" asked Wilbur. "This afternoon I'll spin it. I'm too tired now." Here's another picture. That's that big pig, Uncle. God, he's huge. And there's Charlotte. Do you see her down there by his snout? The least thing tires me these days. I don't seem to have the energy I once had. It's my age, I guess. Wilbur looked at his friend. She looked rather swollen, and she seemed listless. "I'm awful sorry to hear that you're feeling poorly, Charlotte," he said. "Perhaps if you spin a web and catch a couple of